Adam, on your most recent U2 tour, you were planning on this big HBO special for Innocence and Experience, and then some big emotional events happened. Can you just walk us through what happened there right before you were going to record this special?
Yeah, we were in Paris doing the rehearsals the night before the show we were going to record. We were doing camera blocking and all that stuff that you have to do when you're filming. And halfway through the rehearsals that evening, we got a message to kind of move off the stage and move out of the building and you know, get into the cars and go back to the hotel. And there was very little further information. So I think I got on the BBC website and heard that there had been the bombs in the Stade de France at the football game, and that there were shootings throughout the city at that point. They really didn't have very clear news. So that was a very, very scary time. We went back to the hotel and we just kind of watched it on the BBC until we kind of knew what the facts were. But it was a terrible thing to happen in Paris, which is such a great kind of hospitable city.
And as you went back and did the actual concert to finish things up, how were all of you affected emotionally and so forth?
Well, you know, immediately after the attacks, Paris sort of closed down for a week of mourning. So everything was cancelled, the shows were cancelled. And eventually we went back to the mayor's department and said, we'd really like to try and do this show this year. We'd like to reschedule it for within a month of when we were supposed to do it. And, you know, at the time there was this question of whether Paris was safe to stage a big event like that again. And the mayor was very keen that we put on the show and that it was seen as, you know, Paris is back open for business again. So I think it was the right thing to do. Everyone that came to the show, you know, everyone I think came out with mixed feelings. It was the first time there'd been a very big gathering for music since the atrocity at a smaller gig of music fans. And, you know, we were in touch with the Eagles of Death Metal. We encouraged them to come back to the city and to come on stage and eventually, you know, play that concert effectively that they'd been denied playing, you know, a month previous.
When you're putting together a new tour and all of you are discussing it and figuring it all out, how do you go about deciding, okay, these are the older songs we want to do, these are the newer songs we want to do? What's the process like?
You know, it's tricky. It is very difficult because there's so much material that, you know, has a place in the show that means a lot to people. And we kind of start out with what songs are we going to play off the new record? And we always want to play 10 songs off the new record. But we settle on what are we missing in our live show? What can we kind of fit in? So usually we look at, you know, 6 to 8 songs that we're excited about playing from the new record. And then we sort of gradually bring the older material back into the set. I mean, sometimes, you know, there's a narrative arc within the set, so certain songs from certain periods make more sense. With this show, it was a narrative about where we came from. In Dublin, when we were innocent in our teens, we 18-year-olds, was when we first got into the band. Well, actually 16. We released our first record when we were 18. And it was really looking at where we came from with, you know, there was just a light bulb over our heads for the first couple of numbers. It was very much like a punk gig, very stripped down, and just energy. And that was how we started the show. And then it kind of fell into the relationships, the key events in particularly Bono's life that shaped him, the death of his mother, where he grew up on Cedarwood Road and his friends. And that's sort of the first half of the show. And then we kind of, we kind of move on and we go back to the material from Joshua Tree and Action Baby and, oh, what was that?
I don't know, but it didn't crash, so we're good.
Sorry, Chris, pause 1 second.
Okay.
Here you go.
Okay.
Apologies.
Okay.
No problem. We can keep going.
Okay. Well, that was the end of my point, really, was that, you know, after after we get through that new material that deals with the innocence that we had back then in Dublin, and how Dublin, you know, gave us this unique view on the world that was we were able to go out and conquer the world with that unique view. And sometimes, you know, you don't realize how powerful that innocence was until you look back on it and you say, huh, that got us to where we are now. And that was really what the show was about, was to kind of try and show how we had grown into the people and the band that we are now.
All these years when you're working on a new album or a new tour, I mean, you know, talking back, you know, behind the scenes, I mean, if there's a major disagreement, what happens? How do you resolve that?
Well, you know, there aren't major disagreements because, you know, we're all conspirators in moving the thing forward. And, you know, our reason for getting up in the morning is for the songs. You know, it's for those songs and for the live show and being able to get back out there. So if someone has a strong point of view, that's kind of a good thing, because it means that they believe in something. And equally, if somebody has a strong point of view to the negative, that's worth taking into account as well. And I think the way we look at it now is, you know, this system has worked for about 40 years. So, you know, that's longer than most business relationships, longer than most marriages, almost as long as most friendships, you know. So we figure the system that we operate works okay.
It's not worked for any other band in the history of rock bands, though. They have those disagreements, and then suddenly you see them dissolve.
Well, I think what's unique about U2, you know, I can't comment on the way other bands do things, but you know, we kind of had friendship before we had musicianship, and as we developed musicianship and a sense of business, we were advised by our original manager, Paul McGuinness, that in order to consolidate the relationships within the band, it might be wise if we had an equal share in the rewards. And that was pretty much the way we developed. We developed with, you know, equal reward and, you know, hopefully equal effort from everyone. And we kind of have remained true to that.
We're an awards website. I want to ask you a couple of awards questions. What's your first big award show memory?
You know, my most significant award show memory is probably the Grammys for the Joshua Tree. You know, and we came away. I think we came away with 3 or 4 that night, and it was, you know, we were still very young. We were 27. It was our 4th or 5th. It was our 5th album. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Won Album of the Year that year, right?
We did, and Song of the Year, and whole host of things. That
more than anything, I mean, you were known as a great touring band, and everybody was enjoying the albums. But that particular award show and getting those particular awards, that shot you more into the stratosphere, right?
That was, I mean, that was when we had the cover of Time magazine. It was when, you know, I think music kind of changed around that time. Suddenly there were a lot of new bands that were replacing, I guess, what you'd call the hair bands of the day. You know, there was, you know, that soft rock metal sound that had been a staple of American radio for so long, you know, from the 70s onwards. There was a sort of a sea change, and bands like us and iNNOCENCE were being played on the radio, and a lot of English bands, I think Duran Duran, were breaking America. It was a real change of leadership, in a sense.
And then almost 20 years later, you win Album of the Year again for How to Dismantle. It's truly amazing to have a band that has that kind of staying power, not only on tour, but also critically and within the industry.
Well, we've been very, very lucky. I mean, I don't know why we've managed to kind of stay current. I mean, we try hard to listen what's happening. We try hard to keep up, but somehow we manage to take our audience with us every time we kind of have an ambition to reach further with our music.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2005. Because you started so young, you're one of the youngest groups of people to ever go into the Hall of Fame, go in on your first year of eligibility, obviously. Can you talk about that experience of that night?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say we were almost too young, because we definitely felt too young to be inducted at that point. But, you know, at the same time, it was an amazing honor to be fast-tracked and to be honored at the earliest moment in our career that we could be honored. You know, the Hall of Fame, it's extraordinary to be in that room with all those people and to be a part of that history. And, you know, that is for us, that was how we learned about America, through music. So the Music Hall of Fame is America for us. So, you know, there's some really great people that have pushed the boundaries as a part of that whole movement.
And then just a few years ago, one of my favorite performances ever of yours, and I've seen so many concerts and listened to the albums obviously over and over, but the Rock Hall of Fame big 2-night concert in New York, where you had a whole section of the night and you got to invite out on stage with you some other Hall of Famers. Well, that whole weekend must have been just an amazing experience.
Well, you know, that was a lot of fun. It was towards the end of our tour. So, you know, the band was playing really well at the time. And I think Mick Jagger got in touch. He wanted to do a tune with us. Bruce Springsteen was willing to do a tune. Patti Smith was willing to do a tune. So it was like all the greats, all the people that influenced us and all the people that we would want to be on a stage with, asking us to be their band for the night. So you know, we got to play in everyone's band that night. It was fantastic.
Yeah, just an all-star weekend all the way around. On the film side, you've been up at the Golden Globes 5 times, won a couple there, been up at the Oscars a couple of times. How is the Oscar experience different than anything else probably you've ever done?
Well, you know, you play second to the movies there. You know, I think, you know, it's great for music to be honored at the Oscars. It's great for contemporary musicians, you know, that are working in the songwriting mode as opposed to score, to be able to be in that room and be on that stage. You know, it's humbling, and there's always a lot of really great musicians there. There's a lot of very great nominees. We've been nominated twice, and we haven't walked away with an Oscar, but, you know, we're still young.
Oh, good. That means maybe something in the works for another movie down the road.
You know, we'll be back. We're not going to give up on. We're not going to give up on doing tracks for movies. You know, it's something that we find very exciting, to be able to mold what we do with a big movie release, and just kind of connect people.
Well, we hope to see you at the Emmy Awards in a few months. Maybe we can help you get a TV award down the road here. It certainly was a great variety special, and really appreciate your time. Like I said, I've been listening and watching for so many years.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for us being a part of this show and being nominated.